Hi, I'm Keegan. This is a bunch of gamers. Welcome back to GM Talks, and I am joined by Dixie,
Hello.
and we're going to talk about Monster Kingdom.
I am so excited about Monster Kingdoms. It has been such a fun project. I cannot wait.
Yeah, I imagine because I did run a game of World Below actually, and had that recorded, and then talked to Matthew about that setting. And you guys
Mhm.
did dungeon crawl with the story path ultra really seamlessly, like in ways I was actually surprised that it actually worked out as uh, as well as it did. So how is it going to be basically running Birthright but with monsters?
You're a little out of my depth here because Birthright's one of those things that I only really know because of my partner talking about it. It is not something that I was familiar with.
Oh,
Um, that said, having read the entire book at this point, since I did also edit it, there's a lot of encounter tables and there's a whole section about your expansion and consolidation phase, which is similar to the calm phase on World Below, if your listeners are familiar. Which is where you can, base build, you can expand, you can add new things to your personal dungeon. Because obviously, if you're a monstrous warlord, you have a dungeon. And it seems to have gone really seamlessly into Storypath. Like I'm honestly constantly impressed by Storypath Ultra and how it iterated on the initial Storypath system. I am not a systems head. I'm gonna get that out of the way up front for everybody. I'm mostly like, I like setting, I like character creation, I like some of that, but when it comes to the more crunchy stuff, my brain occasionally turns off. But reading through it and seeing how easy it is, even for someone like me, for whom that's not like my primary form of gaming, has been really, really cool. Because I'm just dipping my toe into DMing and story guiding and stuff like that more often. I've been a very, very infrequent story guide and DM over the past several decades I've been gaming. Because I've got anxiety. Everybody has their issues. But Storypath Ultra is so versatile and so easy to slot things into each other. And like I thought it was going to be confusing at first when Matthew was telling me about like how he wanted character creation even. And I was like, this is gonna be confusing. And then I did it and I was like, oh, that was really easy actually. Storypath Ultra is really easy to understand.
no, it is, and I found that with the World Below as well. I think the only thing we ran into, and that was more of a weakness of the manuscript itself, is the tables that give you the kind of like quick rundown
Mhm.
in Word were just really hard to read.
Yeah. Oh
So,
yeah.
so that
The word the way we have to format for so this is for anyone that has never looked at one of our manuscripts. The way that we have to format tables in Word to make them uh, work in InDesign when Mike or whoever else goes to do layout, it's just every column is separated by a tab. And that means that if you have a lot of information that gets like kicked down to a different line, or sometimes your tabs format is like different sizes, tables can occasionally be kind of crazy. And that's why we don't put it into table format in Word like some people think that we should, is because that won't translate to InDesign the same way that a tab table will.
yeah, yeah. No, and I understand that. It's just it was the only real issue we ran into, and I know this setting is part of the Earthbane, right? Is that
Mhm. The Earthbane cycle.
the Earthbane cycle? So they're related, and is the game going to go into anything about how they're related, or
Not this game specifically.
okay,
Possibly in the future that something will address. It's something that we internally have an answer to,
okay,
but that we're not sharing at this time because we think it's kind of like how we'll never tell anybody what happened to humans in Pugmire, for instance,
sure,
because it's more interesting for people to figure it out on their own. I'm
mm-hmm,
not sure if we'll ever give a canon answer, but
sure,
there's clues in the title, the Earth Bane cycle.
yeah,
And we have one kind of high fantasy game right now and at the gates where people are kind of using the equivalent of magical nukes against each other. We have
mm-hmm,
this Monster Kingdoms game that has a bunch of crumbling empires and people trying desperately to like grasp on in a very dark world. And then we have one where it's entirely underground and the surface is a bad place. So,
yeah.
you can kind of think about how you would put them together. I know how they go in my brain, but you could also reverse that because if it's a cycle, then it's cyclical, right?
Yeah, yeah. Or you just I'm not sure if you're familiar with the American Godzilla movies that came out
I've seen
recently.
no, I've only seen one, I think.
Okay, so just for quick context, the Hollow Earth is apparently hollow. There's a second
Yeah.
Hollow Earth inside the Hollow Earth, so
What?
yeah, it's very silly. Uh, it's called the Subterranean Earth,
I love that.
apparently. Yeah, but there you go. You have World Below in the Subterranean Earth, Monster Kingdoms in the Hollow Earth, and then at the gates on
I
the Earth
don't hate
Earth.
that actually. As like
Yeah,
as a setting idea, that could be really fun. Like, oh
yeah,
no, at the gates, I accidentally broke through to Monster Kingdoms.
yeah, exactly. So with Monster Kingdoms,
Mhm.
so you're playing the monsters, obviously,
Yes.
and what kind of spin, because I know you guys like to do that and I actually like it too, is where you try and humanize the monster a little bit. What kind of things are you excited about making the monsters more relatable and kind of playing with it, and what things are kind of like the deliciously evil things you still get to do because you know you're Dracula in his castle?
Yeah. It's a really interesting question, and one that I am probably more primed to answer than some because I wrote character creation for this. So even though Matthew gave me what he wanted out of it, the heritages, the kingdoms, and the dusks and mantles are all things that I worked on. So one thing is that like the monster kingdoms themselves are really harsh places. They kind of have a culture of violence and conquest and betrayal, and it's really hard to escape that. If you think about how people used to play in like the World of Darkness, there's kind of two ways to play. There's the we're gonna be evil and do evil things, and you can absolutely do that. And then there's the we're gonna be superheroes with things, right? We're going to rebel against the Sabbat or the Camarilla or whatever, and we're going to overthrow it and make the city a better place, even though we still eat people. And that's kind of how I think a lot of players are going to end up approaching this. I know that most of our fans and our players aren't into the like grim dark murder hobo game, and I certainly am not either, unless I'm playing like Borderlands. Uh, but like I think that what people are going to do is they're going to want to remake the world into what they think of as a better place. But what you think of as a better place might not be. Like if you are from the Kingdom of Scales and your idea of a better place is to bring back the elder dragons that have not been seen for hundreds of years, what are those elder dragons going to do to everybody else? Or if you're a vampire and you think, oh, the best way would be if vampires ruled the whole world, that yeah maybe isn't actually that great for a lot of people. So yeah, part of it's going to be that there is still very much room in this game for people to play the kind of like bringing the light back to the land characters. There is one kingdom specifically that is still trying to hold on to what we call the light, not capitalized. It's just, better better things essentially, and other people can turn toward that. But there's also like you could try to bring order to it. You could try to organize everybody back under one empire and see if you could help people that way. There's lots of things you can do to be better. At the same time, there are a lot of things you can do to be horrible. Between like you mentioned earlier, maintaining your own dungeons. Um, these characters you're kind of playing. Somebody on RPGNet said you're playing at the level of like JRPG bosses, and I kind of like that. Like you're not starting out as like a level 1 peasant. You're starting out as someone who maybe already has their own dungeon. And so at minimum you are a low level RPG boss. Um, and because of that, there are probably people that you don't really care about if you want to look at it the way that world would actually kind of work. At the same time, we do also have a really nice chapter with all the story guide advice that is very, very helpful at kind of explaining how you can run a monstrous game without the players feeling like monsters themselves. Like, there's obviously always lines and veils in games like this. There's consent forms. There's putting parameters on things. Uh, we've already been asked a couple times in various places, like, how do you, expect to police that? It's like, well, we can't police your table, and we're not going to. We're not interested in doing that. If you're going to have a bad actor at a table, they're going to be a bad actor. But overall, I think that people understand that it can be fun to play a monster. Like it's a fun thing to do sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. I almost a opportunity to do kind of xenofiction, right? Because you were talking about monsters with goals that's good for them. It's kind of
Mhm.
envisioning like the very extreme of that, right? You're a benevolent mind flayer who's found a way to humanely harvest brains so
Right.
that the people don't suffer, but you still got to eat brains, and it's a utopia for mind flayers, and it's absolutely horrific from a human perspective, but it's very moral, just, and utopian from a mind flare perspective.
Yeah, I feel like you're just subtweeting Omelium from Baldur's Gate 3, but I do understand what you're saying.
Yes, yes,
But yeah, no, I mean it's the same thing. And like what's good for one group of people. I'm not going to say species because we don't differentiate people by species in this, and it's possible to be a mix of different heritages in this game.
uh huh,
Because that can feel very dehumanizing when
sure,
you're like, well, you're an orc, so you can't talk to humans because they can't understand you. Like that's not what we're interested in.
sure.
Everybody in this game is still people. But yeah, like what does it mean for someone who is into the kingdom of the malignant mind to spread the malignant mind? Wherever the malignant mind goes, it makes drones out of everybody. It is kind of similar to that whole mind flayer situation. Um, so maybe what's good for the kingdoms might be crushing the malignant mind. That's not good for the malignant mind, but it's good for other people. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's all a balance about what your character wants and what your squad wants, and what all of the monsters' goals are and where they align.
yeah,
Because there are definitely some dusks that it doesn't seem like they'd be working together, but maybe they are, for the quote unquote greater good.
yeah. And you spoke of creating dungeons actually, and creating your own dungeons. What's that kind of look like? What's like what are the mechanics behind it? Are there kind of like special things that just like pop in your mind that makes the dungeon creation really interesting for players?
Yeah, so I'm gonna look at the manuscript a little bit here because, like I said, I've only read that part once, and mechanics aren't my strong suit. But the regiment and the dungeon are both supposed to kind of act as characters on their own. It secures territory. The regiment does things for you, while the dungeon acts as your base of operations. So you get a secure fortress, essentially. And of course, a dungeon can be anything from like an underground cave to a castle to a floating fortress to a pocket realm. I think we even mentioned like fleets of ships guarding places can be a dungeon. And then there are a bunch of dungeon traits and qualities. Um, that define what your dungeon can have. So it could have like plunder, supplies, support, and then it could also have some regiment specializations, like people that can do guard duty or architects or smithies, what have you. Uh, I think that you have somebody from your regiment kind of run it in your absence. You've got a second in command officer, and then there's all kinds of expansions you can put on there, like various, I think, ambushes, battles. I'm probably not saying all this correctly, so don't quote me on this until you've seen the chapter, which you will see by the end of the Kickstarter. But I know that there's things that your regiment can go out and do when you're not there. Like you can send them out for like espionage or recruitment, even. And then as far as what your actual base looks like, I think I'm gonna leave that for when it actually comes out because that is something better read than explained on a podcast.
Sure, I understand. Then, are there story seeds built into the game, maybe for if an intrepid adventurer breaks into your quote unquote dungeon and steals your loot, but doesn't get to you?
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of story seeds built around that, and in the actual story guide section, it is full of story seeds. Like Matthew has a thing when he develops a book that he's had for every book that I've worked on for him, which is he's like, do not write a sentence without putting a plot hook in it, if possible. Like, obviously, sometimes you need just to clarify something, but for the most part, he wants every sentence to have a plot hook in it, which I think is a good way to do, especially kind of like a big fantasy book like this. But if you go through the actual story guiding chapter, there's story seeds for like every dusk, I think, most of the mantles, and then just kind of woven throughout the whole chapter, there's so many story seeds. Like for instance, one of the ones I just scrolled past for opposition is like guards catch a spy casing your dungeon, which reeks of an imminent attack. So you're like forewarned of an attack on your dungeon, would be an example of one. And you can figure out who's trying to attack you. Do you preemptively attack them? Do you set up an ambush? What are your plans there? You know?
Sure. Uh, so then I guess is a good time to taper into that with the smelling thing. Is what kind of ancestries do you have? You've mentioned the scales, which I imagine are like dragon people. What other
Yeah.
kind
Well,
of monsters you got?
okay, this is my specialty. So we have kind of all of your basic what you would consider like fantasy peoples. We have dwarves, elves, we have humans, because there's always someone that's going to want to play a human. Our elves are weird though. I made them weird on purpose because I'm tired of elves always being Legolas. And I wanted them to be strange. So they have too many muscles and too many joints, and they are really into bugs. Because I was like, let's just make them weird. Why not? We have elemental type of people called elementors, but it's not just your typical elements. We also have elements like smoke and salt, which I'm very, very fond of. We've got the Feyborn, which are um just kind of weird looking people. They are, born of the Fae, obviously, and therefore they're a little strange. We've got fiends, which are your kind of like tieflings. Forlorn, which are kind of fallen angel Azamar types. And then goblinoids, orcs, a whole bunch of shapeshifters of various kinds, mostly animal shapeshifters, but there are other edges I think you can take to make you shapeshift into other people. And then we have our undead and our vampires and wraiths. And with the vampires and wraiths, especially, you get to decide what heritage you had before you became that. So you can be like an orc vampire. And even though it's not explicitly in the rules, I've even already said this in our Discord. If somebody said they wanted to be like an orc vampire and they wanted one of the orc traits, like one of the edges that's orc only, I would let them have that personally. Like I wouldn't say like, no, you forgot how to be an orc when you became a vampire. Um, like still limit the number of edges they can have to whatever their limit is. But if they wanted to mix it up, I would absolutely allow that. Because that's cool. Like you almost never see vampires from other fantasy races, I've noticed. Like I've been playing in a Curse of Strahd campaign, and I started thinking a lot about how even though there's so many races in D&D, like vampires always look like humans or elves, and that's about it.
So I'm wondering. This is a tangent, and I apologize, but we are known
I love
for it.
tangents.
Is
I love it.
I do wonder if part of that was because 5e kind of gave you just a stat block for vampires,
Yeah.
and that comes with pictures, and that
Hmm.
art is very evocative of humans and elves. But in 3.5, for example, vampire was a template, so you could apply it to anything. Because I did notice that there were more
I'd
like
forgotten about that. I haven't played
yeah.
3.5 in so long.
I played one at Gen Con 2 years ago, and I was like, oh yes, this was fun and nostalgic. Never again. Uh, I love
Yeah, I mean, I've
3.5, but
I was playing that in my, like, early 20s, and I am
mm-hmm.
not that anymore. So, yeah, yeah, like, honestly, even in the art that we've released so far, the one vampire picture that we have is very elfy, and I'm like,
Ah,
"Okay, I hope there's other ones that are
yes,
not super elfy or, like, wraiths that are also orcs." I am singling out orcs because they are kind of the least, like, lithe, willowy kind of characters that we
yeah,
have. But there's lots of other things that could be vampires. Like
yeah,
why shouldn't they be a like fiend vampire or I love the idea of a forlorn vampire. Somebody asked about that in our Discord too.
mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, take this character that has like glowing eyes and maybe like a halo and like weird metal joints and then also they're a vampire. That sounds awesome. That sounds really cool. Like I want to play that.
Yeah. I think the only, at least in video games, there's a half vampire orc in Oblivion.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
is. But still,
yeah,
that's a really old game.
yes. I'm a very old person. Uh,
I mean, same friend. But
uh,
yeah, and I was gonna say, and then within all the heritages, each heritage has at least four houses. I think a couple of them, yeah, a couple of them have more. But most of them have at least four houses. And that gives you a little kind of that that gives you your major and minor path attribute dots and an infamy trait where you get different things for ranks of infamy. But it also kind of tells you maybe how your elf acts versus elves of different houses, because obviously no one people are a monolith, especially when you've got 13 fractured kingdoms going on.
Yeah.
So breaking that up even further, I think only added to the like diversity of character you can make. Which I know for some people can be scary when they look at something and they're like, "Oh no, I have 40,000 options."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I definitely recommend drilling down into like the heritage you want first, and then just picking a house rather than trying to look at all the houses and say, "Oh God, there's so many of them."
Yeah.
Because if you want an elf that's mentally focused, there's a good house for you, and if you want an elf that's socially focused, there's a good house for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's something that wasn't there actually in the original character creation draft,
Really.
and that Matthew and I think Rich came on and refined afterward. So it was really fun when I went back and reread it when I was doing some editing. And that I kind of got to read this chapter that, yes, I wrote a lot of it, but then there were these whole subsections that were new to me and
Mm-hmm.
that really added to the work I did. I love working in a collaborative manner with everybody. That is one thing that I really like about making RPGs versus writing on my own for anything, is that like we are talking to each other, we are working together, we are, bouncing ideas here and there. Someone's going like, "Hey, if I wrote this monster, do you want to use it in a dungeon?" Yeah, of course, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Um, and it's really, really fun. I only felt bad because there was one like people kept asking me about the dusks specifically because they were trying to write the crowns, the like crown powers, and I was like, I'm so sorry, that's the last thing on my list. I'm so sorry. I will get it to you soon. But yeah, like they kept asking me for this one thing that I just wasn't prepared to write yet. And I was like, no, I need to get through all this other stuff first. I'm sorry,
Oh
guys.
no, no, no. That's good. To backtrack just a sec again, is you
Yeah,
mentioned that you're like all elves are like Legolas. So these elves are like, and my brain actually jumped to Feanor. Incredible.
Feanor?
Uh, that is from the Silmarillion. Uh,
Oh yeah, I have
yeah,
never. I'm one of those people who really loves Lord of the Rings films. Read The Hobbit as a kid and bounced
mm-hmm.
off all the other books really hard
That's
because there
fair.
aren't women in many of them.
That is fair. 100% fair. I like will not defend that decision on Tolkien's part, nor people who bounce off of it, especially the Silmarillion. It's dense. The For a casual reader, it's probably too dense because it's the language he decides to use.
Yeah,
One of the funner games though is to start a sentence from the Silmarillion and end it with a line from the Bible and seeing how close they match.
I love it.
But
We did use the Silmarillion to name our elf characters in D&D back in the day because that
oh,
was where our
fantastic!
like Elvish dictionary was, so you
I
could
mean, yeah,
put
like
words together and make names.
yeah, I mean, there's like 100 like named characters in there, so you like
Mhm.
no lacking of names to draw from.
Yeah. I was actually drawing off two things when I made my bug elves, which is like the fourth place that I've talked about them, but I love them, so I'm going to keep talking about them.
Sure.
One is that I really love the way that elves are portrayed in Divinity Original Sin, one and two.
Hmm.
Um, have you played this?
I have not.
Okay. They are excessively creepy looking. They're like incredibly tall and weirdly thin, and they have like 16 abdominal muscles. Like all their musculature is strange. They can also eat dead flesh and get the memories of the person it once belonged to. So they're creepy. And then I also have recently, well, I guess for the past decade, it seems like now, been reading the Brandon Sanderson Stormlight novels, and there are some bug people in those at one point,
Oh,
and
gotcha.
I was like, what if my elves were creepy and super into bugs? Yeah. Um,
Okay.
but like we did try to subvert like expectations on most of these things.
Yeah.
Um, like orcs, yes, are into, fighting because everybody in the Mushroom Kingdoms is kind of into fighting, but they're
Sure.
also very industrious. Like that's where most of the industry happens in this world.
Okay.
It's in the Orcish Kingdom.
Okay.
Humans, I tried really hard not to make them the default heroes because I feel like that
Sure.
happens in a lot of fantasy settings
Yeah.
where people are like, "Oh, here are the humans. They're the best guys," and I'm like, "Are they?"
Eh.
Um, So they have a whole culture that values suffering because it turns them into better people in their opinion. But that also means that they value suffering, which
Is,
is not the best thing.
is their God's name Joran Peterson? Uh,
Yeah, like basically making everyone have the ability to be heroic because anybody can be heroic because
sure, sure.
you could look at any monstrous description and go, well, I'm going to be the one who's not like that because that's how protagonists happen.
Yeah, yeah,
That makes perfect sense to me.
yeah.
But like the forlorn, I think some people were like, oh, if they're fallen angels, aren't they all like automatically good? And I'm like, read their description. They can be all kinds of weird things. Also, if you look at what people talk about like biblical angels, they were horrifying.
Yes,
Like
yes,
they're terrifying. And also there's angels of vengeance as much as there are angels of like peace.
yes.
So yeah, some of them could be really good. Not all of them probably. And also it's not like the forlorn are angels. They're like the descendants of, just like
Yeah,
most of these fantasy peoples are. So they're still just people, you know?
yeah, yeah. Another quick tangent. I'm doing a series here as well of called Politics and Gaming, where we
Hmm.
talk about like the politics that inspire the games that are written, the games you run, things like
Hmm.
that, how your personal politics. And all I could think was you're describing the humans is like you have created a subcult or a human culture that is essentially just the worst online stoics
Yep.
that you can imagine, and I'm like, that's incredible. Like, that's a great premise of a monstrous human civilization. So I just wanted to call that
Yeah,
out.
it was real. So I'm very leftist and I'm very steeped in politics. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw that out there.
Hard
Like
to avoid here.
yeah, I listen to politics podcasts every day. I am on online discussions. For your listeners, I am in the DC area, so we're having a great time right now. Um, but like it was interesting with the humans specifically because I didn't want to just make them like fascists. I didn't want to just make them like what I consider the worst human impulses, right? I
Sure.
didn't want to be like, oh, they're fascist colonizers, because that's a little too on the nose
And it's been
for
done before too for when you do evil humans in a fantasy setting, I feel. So,
exactly. Yeah, like I didn't want to make them the Imperium, you know?
yeah.
I like didn't want to just be like, well, that's what they are because they're humans.
Mhm.
Um, so I tried to focus it more on like what individual choices they would make, kind of like you said, the like weird online stoics. But like
Yeah.
that kind of thing where it's like, oh well, we're born humans and we're supposed to suffer, we must endure suffering, but also we must inflict suffering on other people to make them better because if we're not fighting them at their best, then we can't be our best. And it's a strange morality,
Strange
but I think
morality,
it's one that
strange
works for
logic, yeah.
monsters.
But it's what am I looking for? It's internally consistent.
Mm,
Like
yeah,
not great, but internally consistent, which I think is the hallmark of a good kind of like villainous.
it was very funny after I wrote this. I'm going to make this very clear. Well, after I wrote this and my finals were turned in, I read a book that I will not specify nor get too into in case anybody doesn't want to get spoiled because it's a fairly new book, but wherein there was an empire that was doing exactly that. That was like showing up to places and being like, here's some technology. Please get better at it so we can conquer you. And I was like, holy shit, I wrote that. I wrote that like 6 months ago. All right, cool. Like, I
Right?
guess it is an idea that makes sense, you know? They like show up and they're like, yeah, we're gonna help you out. We're gonna make you better. We're gonna make you better. Now we can conquer you. Okay. Oof.
Yeah, like I've mentioned it elsewhere on my podcast, but I keep kind of accidentally predicting the future with my current werewolf game that I've been putting out. And like six
Oh
months
yeah.
ago, I'm like, the U.S. is under martial law, and it's just like, oops, sorry everyone, should have had a happier future in the game.
Oh, believe me. Not even just with this one because this is at least fantasy, so we can divorce it a little bit more
Yeah,
from
yeah,
everything happening. But like when we were working on Tyranny Continuum Anima and writing about the like future fascist USA, and then like as it was coming out, various things kept happening. We were like, we didn't. This was supposed to be a fun game, like a cyberpunky type game. Oops. And even this one, I mean, I'm pretty sure that a lot of us got our writing assignments shortly before the election.
Yeah.
And then the election happened, and especially the US based writers, were all like, oh no, I want to
Yeah.
write about happy things.
Yeah, right, right. It's kind of how it feels, and I think there's a thirst for that elsewhere, but this is at least, you know, not not doom and gloom as you said. It's not grim dark. And so, what are some of the nuggets of hope that you guys have kind of sprinkled in on this game to bring us back the long road?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the most obvious one is the Kingdom of Shards, which is it it used to be it it used to be kind of like seat of the various light bearers. Um there was a rapture many years like many years ago, and then a lot of people fell into despair after that, but some people are still trying to bring that back. The Kingdom of Shards is very much at a low point at the beginning of the game setting. So if you did want to play people who wanted to bring that back, you absolutely could. And maybe figure out where, those creatures who were raptured went, and if you could bring them back to wage war against the darkness, that kind of thing. There is one of the dusk paths, which is the final kind of path that you choose, is called the Path of Light. Uh, it's just technically the rarest. I have a feeling that in games at tables, it will not be the rarest. I have a feeling that there will be at least one in most games. But they want to go out in a blaze of hope instead of falling to despair. They would like to lead their people out of oppression into a more peaceful era, that sort of thing. So they're the kind of people that a lot of other folks in the Monster Kingdoms would probably look at as naive or maybe misguided, but they are doing what a lot of, I think, me and my friends in real life would like to do, which is like, okay, can we fix this? Um, and because of that, I think they're going to be a very, like, I don't know, like, commonly played Dusk. At the same time, I've seen a couple people online talk about the opposition Dusk and how they don't quite get it, but their whole point is also change. They want to change the status quo. They don't like what they see. They want to tear it down and rebuild. And that's also a thing that I think a lot of my friends understand. So two of the ones that seem kind of at odds, I think would actually work together really, really well. And even the Doom Dusk, who are kind of like everything's ending anyway, whatever. Like maybe that's good. Maybe the Monster Kingdoms are fundamentally broken and should be brought down and rebuilt on some level. That's something that I can see a lot of players doing. I can also see a lot of players just having fun fighting dragons. Like it's one of those games. If you would like it to be a very long-term political game where you are, you know, making the Monster Kingdoms over in a much better image, that's awesome. If you just want to go around and dungeon crawl and pillage kingdoms and find cool crowns and fight big scary monsters, that's also neat. Like those are both fun things to do. I like playing, like I mentioned earlier, I like playing Borderlands as much as I like playing something cerebral where I have to actually think about my choices.
Yeah, I feel that. It's funny that you mentioned Baldur's Gate earlier because I actually initially bounced off hard, and I think it was because I'm like, yeah, the intro were great, great, and then once all the decisions started flying at me, I'm like, this is too much. I need, I need a moment. I finally found my footing again, but I completely understand that. So you've mentioned the big scary monsters. So because your monsters represent kind of a moral gray. They're people. They have flaws. They have good things about them. What are some examples of things that are in fact truly evil in this world?
Yeah, I did mention the malignant mind earlier. That is something that is, I forgot if it's super defined. Let me see if it is. It's not super defined in the game right now. That would be like a big bad evil boss. But he controls an entire kingdom and nobody really knows quite what it is. But like 90% of the people that live in that kingdom are drones, and it's scary. Um, I mean, if you played Baldur's Gate, obviously I think of it as like another brain situation. But you can think of it however you'd like. That said, we have both ways to build characters as we do with all of our story path stuff. If anybody backed the story path ultra core rulebook that'll be coming out soon-ish, there's a bunch of qualities in that. If anybody has seen Curseborn, there's a lot of qualities in that to build your own monsters. Much like in the world below, we have about 5,000 different monstrous qualities and dire powers they can have for you to build your own. However, each kingdom does have their own list of a handful of antagonists. Everything from the Brendurian military, which are, just soldiers, guys. Um, we also have things that you will remember from the world below, like the Miyazi Mill, which is one of Matthew's favorites. It's a weird, floaty gas cloud guy. And we've got a bunch of things that can be found anywhere across Gawain, which is the name of the continent. There's like arbors, which are basically evil trees that will absolutely kill you. There's basilisks, there's various swarms, shambling husks, of course, lots of which are your unintelligent undead. Because we have the intelligent undead and the wraiths and the vampires, so you got to have your unintelligent undead as well. There's trolls, which I know that everybody on the writing team was delighted by. For some reason, trolls became like the thing we all kept talking about. Some of them are amphibious. A lot of them live beneath, well, a lot of people live beneath bridges, but not really. They make their nests in caves and things. They are somewhat smart. They're just not really into other people. So they will attack you. And there's some horrifying things. Somebody wrote something called the spine breached, which is what happens if you get this spine rot plague from Varrot, which is the kingdom of rot. So it's also terrifying. Uh, I'll just read from the manuscript for a second. The spine rot symptoms begin with paralysis and painful spasms before leaving a victim locked in and aware in a warped and twisted body. Uh, no more quoting, but after that, apparently what happens is horrible bone arachnid limbs erupt from your back and leave your body hanging around while you are a horrible monster who attacks things. That's called a spine breached, and it's scary.
Incredible.
Yeah, there's so many horrible like the folks who wrote the bestiary were newer writers to us.
Yeah.
I think Matthew had worked with them before, but I had not met either of them. And they work on some of their own stuff. And if I can remember what it is, I will shout them out. If not, I will post them in my Discord later, I promise. But like they wrote some horrifying, horrifying things that I was like, Jesus Christ, this place is worse than I even realized. Because yeah, you got your pirates and your were creatures and your kobolds, because you got to have kobolds.
Yeah,
But you
yeah.
also have your spine breached and your invited geometry from Pandemian, which is crazy. Crystalline Sarsonites are strange little cave dwelling fauna. Yeah, there's a
So,
lot of stuff. I mean, I'm looking at this, and in Word at least, the antagonist list starts on page 37 and goes to page 101.
wow. Uh,
So, yeah.
aren't the Lords of Rot in World Below?
There is a religion in the world
That's
below
what it
called the Lords
was.
and Ladies of Rot.
That's it. That's
In
right.
Monster Kingdoms, we have the Kingdom of Verot,
I see.
Verot,
Oh, I
and
see. I see. I see.
it is full of horrible diseases. Mostly, it's one of the few
Okay.
kingdoms that I don't think you can actually be from. There's only two,
Okay.
I think, that you can't be from, if I'm correct. Um, Yeah, you cannot be from the Malignant Mind, because most people there are drones, and
Yeah.
you cannot be from Verrot, and that is because those two places are that horrible.
Yeah.
That we couldn't like we talked about it, and we decided it made sense to have a couple kingdoms that your character couldn't be from, because then you have reasons to go exploring those kingdoms. But also, if a kingdom's main fauna is horrible sentient diseases, then it's kind of hard to make a character from
Yeah. No,
there.
100%. It's funny you mentioned trolls because I've always wanted to play around with trolls designs in
Mhm,
various games that I've run or played in. And it's
mhm,
because like the flavor text for trolls is there's something there that really captures me. But when you
mhm.
actually go up against one, it always seems to fall short. Part of it is because everyone knows the weakness of trolls and things like that in those games, but I think it's also because the inspiration of the D&D troll is very evocative in the book it's from.
Yeah. I mean, so many people at this point too have seen Lord of the Rings and
Yeah,
everything, and know the trolls from the Hobbit, I guess
yeah,
that's where the trolls are. But like,
yeah.
people are so familiar with that version of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, trolls do have a gargoyle offshoot in this setting as well, which is
Interesting.
cool.
That is
We
cool.
talked, yeah, we talked about various monsters we could make playable. We had to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah,
And so having a couple of monsters that are still vaguely humanoid is just going to happen because we also have
sure.
harpies and sirens. Um, People always ask for sirens and merc creatures, and we always
Mm-hmm.
say, "Are you going to play your entire game on the water? Because if not, they're useless."
Hey,
um,
that's just
yeah,
one
so
more
there's
supplement
a few.
book, right?
Right, yeah. So there's a few things that we left out, but there's a lot of scary stuff in there. Especially weirdly in the aforementioned Kingdom of Shards, the one that's supposed to be full of angels and hope and things. They have two of the most horrifying monsters in the entire game. That I'm very, very excited for people to see. Some of them are called Luminous Exalts.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones are called Martyrs, and they are both very creepy. And I'm gonna leave that as a tease for people when they see the chapter because
Wonderful.
someone really did look at that kingdom and go, "Biblical angels, huh? Those could be scary." And then I went, "Oh God."
Well, and that's what I really like, especially for games like this, right? If you're adventuring,
Hmm.
like the question of D&D always is, right? Why isn't everyone an adventurer if that's where all the gold is?
Right.
And when you make and the monsters have kind of lost some of their lusters. Not to crap talk D&D. I love a good game of D&D for the
Hmm.
most part, but it's just that some of those monsters have lost some of their luster because they are just kind of numbers on a sheet after a point. But when you make something really alien, something that like you describe the power and it makes your spine tingle, it's like, oh, that's why people don't adventure. It's like, yeah, I'll take a pay cut not to have spider legs rip out of my back and hang me there. Yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. That's a horrible, horrible thing. Also, I mean, with some of the big power sources in this game being scepters and crowns, which are at their heart finite resources,
Mm-hmm.
um, not everybody can even be an adventurer because, like, if you don't have access to crowns and scepters, you don't really stand a chance against most of these things, which
Yeah.
is why your player characters all have access to crowns and scepters.
Yeah.
Scepters being your weapons and crowns being literal crowns. Some of them also quite horrifying, I will say. But that's where you get your kind of big boom powers from, are your
Sure.
crowns. And you could have more than one. You can usually only get them by defeating another crown bearer in battle.
Sure.
So that's an obvious antagonist is trying to go after a
Yeah.
crown bearer, which could be a person and could also be a horrible, horrible creature from the Kingdom of Shards. You don't
Yeah.
know.
No.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with that, and it does actually give you kind of an in-world explanation for why most people don't do that. Because most people in this world and in a lot of worlds, like most people are peasants. Like
Yep.
most people are trying not to die day to day, just living in the monster
Mm-hmm.
kingdoms, let alone putting themselves in the line of danger, right?
Yeah.
Because like just living in a lot of these kingdoms is dangerous. If you live in Droidahake, which that's how I'm gonna say it, you're in real peril of being tossed over the edge if the people in charge don't like what you're doing. Because Droidahek flies
Oh,
several
okay.
miles above the other monster kingdoms. It is chained to the ground. But they have a really easy way to get rid of people that they don't like, and it's just throw them over the edge.
I I did hear one minor spoiler for the book though, in that once again we are denied a pronunciation guide for the odd fantasy names.
I Yeah, I don't remember if you put one in here or not, actually.
Okay.
Hang on one second, let me look. I don't know if we have one. I know that Matthew has told like me and the other writers how he says things, and he's happy to clarify you know, out in various chats. But yeah,
Sure.
he may have left it out of the book again, and I didn't think to put one in the book, so maybe there'll be one in the final manuscript.
There
Who
you go.
knows?
There you
It's
go.
like
There you go.
there's a couple of these that are very difficult, and we're kind of having the same thing that we used to have with like vampire clans, where even the
Yeah.
actual writers don't always agree.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like I will say Zmiche till I die, and I'm gonna call it Cruore. And I don't know if it's called Cruore, but that's how I say it in my brain for the
Yeah,
Vampire Kingdom.
sure.
Uh, and yeah, Droidahek is one of those that like Matthew has put together 4 different ways to say it and has said like these are all reasonable depending on where you're from in the continent. And I can kind
Wow.
of see that too, because I'm sure
Yeah,
people have regional variations on language.
sure, sure. I just know personal frustration has nothing to do with the book, right? Is because I ran Call of Cthulhu Horror on the Orient Express,
Oh gosh,
and
all the
as
Cthulhu names are the worst.
no, like the Cthulhu names, I'm fine with. They actually have pronunciation guides for that.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
no, they as you get further closer and closer to Constantinople, they throw all these Slavic village names at you with zero
Mm.
pronunciation guides. So your players are like, "What's this village name again?" And you're looking at the book and your head spinning like, "Ah, I'm about to tread all over this person's language."
I actually have felt that way running Curse of Strahd recently, because all the villager names are vaguely like Eastern European, kind of
Yeah,
pseudo-Romanian, and sometimes they'll give you a name that I'm like, I don't know how to say that, but I'm just gonna roll with it.
yeah, exactly.
Most of ours are pretty straightforward. Like all of our
That's good.
heritages at least are obvious. Like a
Good.
dwarf is a dwarf, an elf is an elf.
Yeah.
Um, the only kingdoms that are weird are the Orcish kingdom, which I think is Kirsch essentially, but it's
Okay.
KRR apostrophe SZCH
Okay.
because Matthew's evil. Droidahek is strange, but once again, who cares how you say that apparently? And then there's one kingdom just called XIN, which I've been saying Zin, but
Yeah.
apparently other people in the chat have said like Jean or like other, because you can pronounce an X all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, whatever works at your table. I don't care. I've I have had to try to calm down on caring about pronunciation because I have worked with and done games with people who pronounce things that I thought were obvious very strangely.
That-
So I'm just like I have not only worked with but run games with multiple people who in Exalted instead of cast say cased because the E at the end threw them when they were younger. And they,
Oh.
I guess they encountered the game before they encountered the concept of like a caste system.
Wow.
And so my brain was like, yeah, no, of course it's cast, but everybody's like case. And I'm like, if you're gonna say case, I can't stop you.
Yeah.
It's weird every time you say it, but I can't
I
stop
can't
you.
stop you. Yeah. No, and that's totally fair, and I get that. I wonder. I'd have to ask Matthew himself, obviously, but I wonder if that orc kingdom is a play on the old orc god from Greyhawk, Groomish.
I would not be surprised. Also, isn't Grumsh still the orc god? Isn't that
He
the orc
might be.
god?
I just know it's from Greyhawk. I'm not as versed in
Okay,
Forgotten
so
Realms.
I played a cleric of Grumsh in Baldur's Gate
Ah,
3.
well then, yeah, yes, he is.
Because I
Yes, he
thought playing an
is.
orc cleric would be funny, and it was. She had some weird dialogue because Grumsh is evil.
Yes, yes, old One Eye.
Yeah, I could see that being the case. I mean, there's a lot of these that have. I don't think anything has really obvious roots, but I know that Matthew has read 400,000 different role playing books and
Sure.
also seen like every bad movie ever made.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he's getting stuff from some of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of peasants and why they don't adventure, are you familiar with the game Dungeon Crawl Classics?
Oh yeah. I
Oh.
used to live in Connecticut near one of the guys that like worked on it when we used to talk
Oh.
stuff like talk shop fairly regularly.
Nice.
Also, it always confuses me because DCC are my initials. So
Oh.
whenever somebody tries to reference that, I'm always like, wait, huh? That's me. And now there's a book series called Dungeon Crawler Carl, and people are also
Yes.
abbreviating that to DCC. And I'm like, can you stop?
Okay.
Those are my initials. Stop using them for other things. But anyway, yes, I am familiar with it.
Okay. Yeah. The you get your 4 to 5 peasants and put them through the meat grinder.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Just same kind of concept. I always like that just because it creates that milieu sort of world.
Yeah, I mean, doing like a dungeon crawl meat grinder game is very cool if that's what you're going for.
Yeah.
I think I for this, it's definitely the opposite. Like you are
Yeah.
already like at level, 1 at character creation, you're doing okay. Like
You
you're
you
doing all
are the
right for
meat
yourself.
grinder.
Yeah, you're gonna get together with
Yeah,
some other meat grinders and try to go take over the
exactly.
world.
No, just me personally thinking about how I'd run this game. I'm like, do an opposite funnel where you bring all your characters together, and it's like, yeah, there's like 30 or 40 peasants trying to go through our lair. Well, let's set
Yeah.
up all the silly traps and just
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, if you want to spend more time at your home base, you're more than welcome to. Although a
yeah,
lot of that is done during like a downtime period, like I said,
sure,
much like Calm is
yeah,
in there.
yeah,
But like, I can totally see a story guide running this and going like, "Hey guys, like." Sometimes as a story guide or any kind of game runner, you want to take a break from like the big plot for a hot minute, or maybe you
yes,
just didn't have time to come up with something for that week or whatever, and you're like, "Hey, we're gonna go on a side quest." And I could
mm-hmm,
definitely see a side quest being like, "I'm gonna throw stuff at you through your dungeon for
yes.
the next 4 hours.
Or
Have fun."
yeah, or just like you're playing with the more player driven plot, so you can't plan too far ahead with the big story beats, and so you start using
Mhm.
various random tables, right, and going, and this happens, and now go.
Yeah, in my ongoing game that I've been playing for like close to a year now, our DM every now and then she has a week where she's busy or she's dealing with her kid or whatever. Like she
Mm-hmm.
can't plan a lot, and she has tons of tools like dungeon card decks that she'll just
Yes.
throw at us if we want, and it's fun for us too because like she's found out that I actually really enjoy the tactical combat side of D&D in a
Uh
way that
huh.
some people don't, but I like it. I think I like it because I've played 1,100 hours of Baldur's Gate 3, um, and it kind of got me really used to it.
Yeah.
So, like, now I kind of love that part of it where I used to find it a little boring, and I like trying to figure out, like, team tactics for everybody so we can, like, work together.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, whenever she wants to throw a little, like, dungeon crawl at us, I'm like, "Let's go!" Like, I am ready for, you know, 2.5 hours of this and only, like, an hour of plot at the end. That's fine.
Yeah. I guess as we're getting close to time, I got one other question that just kind of popped into my head, and before we go to our final question, of course, is just because as you play through the game and your characters get more powerful, as you said, level one, they're
Mhm.
starting pretty good. They're already the meat grinder. Is there
Yeah.
any sort of uh,
Mhm.
I can't think of a better word than apotheosis for the character, where they do kind of like transcend as maybe a ending story path kind of thing, or final tier of play, so to speak.
As of right now, I don't think that we've really put that in any of our story path games where
Okay,
there's like a place where you end, aside
sure.
from in Scion specifically,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because Scion has to have that, otherwise it wouldn't be the
Scion.
story of
Yeah.
Apotheosis.
Yes, yes.
Um, how you can advance your kingdoms, dusks, and mantles as you. I said level up earlier. I shouldn't have said that because in most of our story path games there aren't levels. There's just
Sure.
various, you know, tiers that you're at.
Yeah.
So at the end of each consolidation phase, the players get to advance. Oh, sorry, I hit my mic. And you get a bunch of stuff from that. I would say that that's really gonna end up based on what we have in Story Path called aspirations, which I think anybody who's played any of our games is familiar with some version of aspirations. Usually you have a short term and a long term, and occasionally in most games you have a like squad or band or crew aspiration. So I would say that would be about fulfilling your aspirations and kind of go like what long-term goal does everybody want to achieve together? And then when you've achieved that goal, you can decide, okay, do we move on to another goal? Or is that the end of this story for these characters, right?
Sure.
And I think that's a really good way to play because I feel like some people get locked into games where they feel like it's an obligation versus a fun thing they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, oh, we're playing vampire, so we have to achieve Gehenna or something. Like, no, no,
I did do
you
that
don't
for
have.
my werewolf game.
Yeah, and
Calling me out.
I've done games like that too, and sometimes they're super fun and they go on for 5 years and everybody has a blast, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. Like, it's really cool when that happens. Like
Sure.
like like I just said, I am currently in a Curse of Strahd game. In any Curse of Strahd game, the end goal is to kill Strahd.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
been playing for a year. Strahd is obviously not dead yet. We're like level 7.
Yeah.
And we're still having a good time. Like, I have no intention of leaving that game because we're having fun just like tooling across Barovia, doing Barovia stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's awesome. And like if your first long-term aspiration is like secure this area or secure this kingdom or something, great.
Mm-hmm.
And if your eventual squad goal is like unite the monster kingdoms or overthrow the monster kingdoms or what have you, that's going to take you through a long time of play. Like
Yeah.
that's not something you're going to be able to do in, 3 sessions.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that and you're advancing a path every time you do your consolidation phase, you are gonna feel pretty godlike by the end of it. And I think that's very cool. Like I would love to see a long-term game of Monster Kingdoms after everybody has had, 20 advancements. Um, because it'll probably feel very different, and that's also where, barring any supplementary material that we may or may not put out, I have no knowledge of what's going on with that right now. That's all Matthew.
Sure.
So I don't know if he's planning on doing like higher level stuff or more monsters or whatever, but that's also why we have such a great like build your own monster thing, because
Yeah.
it's really easy to make super high level bosses for the characters to fight if you don't feel like the stuff in the book is challenging your characters anymore. Or you can always, as with any antagonist in any role playing game, you can always, add health levels to them, you can
Yeah.
add extra attacks to them, you can do all kinds of things. So I think it supports high level play, but I don't think there is an end goal when it comes to like your character creation specifically. I think that would be up to the group.
Gotcha. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to really gush about this game before I let you go for the evening?
Oh gosh. I'm really excited about the art that I've seen coming in. I think that they did a really cool job making it look like classic fantasy, but also have a little bit of like an almost like an anime or manga influence, which I like because that kind of marries the world below and at the gates in a really lovely way, since at the gates is very anime influenced and very like JRPG influenced, and the world below is very much like Matthew's weird monster game.
Yeah.
Um, and I love that. The whole team did a fantastic job. It wasn't a very large team, actually. I know that some of our books, we have like 15, 20 writers on them. This one, I think there were like 8 of us. Um, and so we got really tight knit and really good at talking about things. And just like shout out to everybody who worked on any of the book. The only part that we didn't super talk about for like your characters that you also do get a faith, which you can define yourself if you want to, if none of the ones in the book appeal to you. Um, and then you have your mantle, which is more of like your actual class. So that's more like how you do things. So,
Got it.
if you're a goldsman, that's kind of like a rogue, and if you're a harlequin, that's kind of like a bard. So they're all kind of similar to D&D classes, but not the exact same, because that would not be fun if they were the exact same, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's gonna be really cool. I know some people, especially with the way the world is right now, are like, "Oh no, if I want a really dark game," and it's like, well, don't make it dark then. Make it about punching the dark things in the face. Make
Yeah.
it about rebuilding the kingdom into a socialist utopia. Like, go for it. Like, I would play that. I would play a game where we're monsters trying to make a socialist utopia. That sounds like fun. But you could also, use it to get your frustrations out. I know that
Yes.
everybody has those right now too. So if you would like to just
Yes.
go, you know, fight some trolls, that's also fun and valid.
Perfect. Dixie, where can you be found online if you wish to be found?
Yeah, the main place I am right now is probably honestly the Unexpected Discord is the best place to find me if you want to talk to me. I'm on Blue Sky at dixiecyanide.bsky.social. I deleted my Twitter a long time ago. Everybody should do that, in my opinion. And I'm occasionally found on RPGNet and other places where RPGs are discussed. But if you want to actually talk to me directly or anybody else who worked on the game, the Unexpected Discord is probably the best place for that.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I've been Keegan. This is a bunch of gamers. You can find me on YouTube, Podbean, Facebook, Blue Sky, but you will never find me on Twitter, and you never could because I founded a cesspool and I was proven right. Good night, everybody.